Welcome to the Peacemakers Podcast, where we explore the intersections of spirituality, social justice, and transformative action. This podcast is brought to you by Zen Peacemakers, and today we are honored to share the wisdom and insights of Dr. Larry Ward, a teacher, author, and Dharma holder in the Plum Village tradition of Thich Nhat Hanh. In this episode, Dr. Ward guides us through deep reflections on America's racial karma as collective trauma and the urgent need for healing. Drawing from history, Buddhist teachings, and his own lived experience, he challenges us to wake up to the realities of racial injustice and invites us to step into the work of transformation. Dr. Larry Ward opens with a deeply personal reflection, holding in his hands the chains and cuffs once used to enslave children. This visceral image calls us to remember, history is not just something of the past, it is alive in our present. The chains may no longer bind the body, but their echoes remain in our systems and institutions.
My name is Larry Ward. I'm speaking to you today from the ground of my own ancestors and their long journey of healing, transformation, and change, which is continuous. I brought with me today something from my in-law's house, found many years ago in Wisconsin. I keep these chains, original chains, and handcuffs from slavery so I do not forget. And these cuffs and chains were designed especially for children. I have a poem for you. It's called When I Became Currency. When they came for me, I tried to contain my fear and my heartbreak. My bones longed for home as I, sick in the bottom of a ship, became dark currency, carried over the seas. I was sold and sold again, a commodity, an instrument of profit, seduced and sustained by greed, arrogance, and ignorance. Cold and beleaguered in a new land unknown, I tried to forget such horror in my bones. But the looks and whispers, even to this day, remind me. I am a class of color created by a colonial mind, missing its own self-worth. But the dance of my ancestors in my bones have kept me awake and kept me alive. I live beyond such limiting constructs of mind. I am free because I am not confused. I am stardust awake. I am the earth and sky embracing all. I ride the wind with the eagle and the hawk. I flow with the rivers into all oceans. I touch the sun and am touched by the moonlight, all beings. I am nature herself, awake, powerful, resilient, generative, and loving. I offer the love of all my ancestors to your ancestors and the ancestors of all beings. I offer my presence like rain falling on the wise and unwise, the troubled and the untroubled, the just and the unjust, so that the wounds of time may be healed in the dance of the flow of birth and death. Since we began this weekend, my days and nights have been flooded by a river of tears, as may be the same for you. This year, a mighty river of tears. This history, our history, a river of tears, and many of us have died and drowned in this river whose contours were created by brutalizing colonialism. driven by greed, hatred, and ignorance, with economic, political, and cultural agenda. But we have not only died, we have also risen, embracing our mystery, depth, and greatness as true beings of this earth. Yes, I am in America. I was birthed in these lands, now called America, but I am not of America. I am of the earth. And so are you. Until we understand that, we will remain lost in our depravity, lost in our barbarity toward one another, lost in almost the joy of unkindness that some of us have toward each other. I am not now, and you are not now, and we are not now, nor have we ever been disconnected from the mystery of our own eternal spiritual life. Our dances and our songs and our movements all acting out and releasing trauma. So when I ask myself, healing the wounds of time, I have to also ask myself, whose time and whose wounds? So for me, the time is in the last 500 years of human history, the rise of colonial Western empire. Indigenous peoples, enslaved peoples, directly and indirectly with generational trauma transmitted from gene to gene. Barbarism. And it is not just the victims, though that's where we need to focus, because when we understand what has happened to others, this is something white supremacy has difficulty understanding in the mind, in the heart. Martin Luther King said it this way: if I am committed to holding you down with my foot on your neck, how far can you go? And we have now seen that face to face for anyone who's paying attention. Not only the victims are traumatized in our bodies and in our minds, I was struck by how many of the people who've been brutalized by law enforcement or civilians who thought they were some form of law enforcement had mental suffering. You cannot have 400 years of what we had without mental suffering, or you're not human. Our very suffering is an indication of our humanity. How dare it be denied? But we live in a world, not only a country, we live in a world in which the myth of race is so powerful as a category of human status, a category of human intelligence, a category of human worth. These wounds are inside of all of us.
Dr. Ward takes us deeper, exploring the myth of race, how it was constructed, how it has shaped human worth, and how it continues to fracture our societies. He speaks of generational trauma, passed down not only through stories, but through our very genes, and the devastating impact of colonial mindsets that thrive on separation and superiority. We are at a tipping point. Across the globe, people are awakening to the interconnectedness of justice, environmental stewardship, and spiritual wholeness. Dr. Ward urges us to recognize that healing must begin with safety, creating spaces where fear can dissolve and trust can be rebuilt.
It can be overwhelming, I know, to hear the stories we've heard, to experience our own heartbreak, our own shame, our own regret, our own possibility for healing and transformation. This truth of America's racial karma is not philosophical. It is about bodies and bones and lives. I saw a great statement from a young person in Kenya recently who was 9 years old, and he was holding a poster that said, "I am of the earth, I belong on the earth." This shift we're in is planetary. It is not just in America. We are in a worldwide awareness of cultural and racial reckoning I've never seen before in my life, and I never thought I would see, to be honest. We must understand what we're dealing with here. And what is it we're dealing with? We're dealing with a part of human consciousness that is so skillful that it convinces us we are separate. And in Buddhist terms, we have turned race into a separate self, as if it exists all on its own with no connections to anything, as if there's some essence inside my skin. There is the essence of heaven and earth. The profound stress we are under right now, maybe no humans have ever experienced. We have a combination, a mixture of yearning, as many voices and faces call for wellness, justice, and a non-colonial social psychology of who and what we are and how to be together. I am not surprised it's so difficult for us to be together, because we have been trained and conditioned not to be. We must understand this. Our situation didn't just happen. It happened over time. Institution by institution, reinforcing the trauma, reactivating the trauma in us all. It's not that we escape the experience of trauma in human life. It is learning how to deal with it skillfully, which many of us have never been trained how to be or do or know. I am convinced that the key to the way forward in the race matter has to begin with the cultivation of safety. I'm talking about the area of our body's function below the cognitive function. I'm talking about our primitive function of survival. And right now, as has ever been, our primitive function of survival in America is on hypervigilance. We're scared all the time. Our whole culture lives in psychic fear. Fear of ourselves, fear of one another. And that is the first step of healing, is learning how to create safety in ourselves and how to create safety among ourselves and create safety between ourselves. It can be done. None of us would even exist now if our ancestors intuitively and culturally hadn't figured out how to do some of this. So we have resources, people. We have tools. The issue is whether our consciousness and our choices are willing to do the work. Each of us has 1,000 capabilities inside of us, granted by our thousands of years of ancestors. What if we actually embraced our gifts and talents in deeper ways, more meaningful ways, and learn how to share these gifts and talents in ways we never conceived of with one another? I firmly am convinced that the key to the future of this planet is people. Because when I study history, what I have learned is that human consciousness shifts faster than institutions. And so if we want different institutions, we have to be different. With ourselves as individuals, we have to be different with one another. Or we will continue to be tricked by the colonial framework of fight or flight, which places us back in the same situation where we began.
Dr. Ward leaves us with a powerful image, Mercy's Bridge. In a world fractured by racism, war, and greed, he asks the critical question, do we really want to get well? Healing is not passive. It requires us to rewire our consciousness, to shift the stories we tell ourselves, to recognize that love and care must become stronger than greed and hate. This is personal work, but also collective work. And so the invitation is this: how do we step into beloved community? How do we engage with one another beyond fear, beyond the barriers of race and history, into a shared humanity that acknowledges both the suffering and the possibility of renewal?
In order for this to occur, for me, we have to cross Mercy's Bridge. And that bridge for me begins with a New Testament example that's coming up for me, the Jesus story, so to speak. Jesus was out walking along, which he spent a lot of time doing. He came to what we would call now a spa or hot spring, where people gathered. And there was a man laid by the pool. And Jesus came up to him and said, "What's wrong? What's your difficulty?" And the man said, "Oh, I've been here 38 years and nobody will help me. My bed's all smelly. I'm trying to get in the water. I don't know what to do." Jesus looked at him and said, "Do you really want to get well?" That's the first question for America. It is not clear to me we have said yes. Do we really want to get well with our racial consciousness and institutional treachery around race? Do we really want to heal? This is the first question. There's a great section in one of the important texts in Buddhism, the Lotus Sutra. And the Buddhas in meditation, along with other practitioners, sometimes called bodhisattva, or wise, compassionate persons, in fact. And bodhisattvas, or wise, compassionate beings from other planets, came to visit the group, saying, "We've been looking at the earth. We think you may need some help." And the response from the Buddha is that bodhisattvas, loving and caring people, beings, are rising from the earth. We have enough here to heal and care for us all. So even in the mud of our present situation, bodhisattvas, caring persons, are rising up from the earth. Understanding they are earthlings, not caught in some framework of false identity. To me, what's exciting about all this is we can invent ourselves. We can literally create, as we do every day, what it means to think like a planetary human, what it means to speak like humans who live on a precious planet, what it means to be present with our actions, with our bodies, with our money, with our time. My internal life, my spiritual life is not confined by these chains. I am larger than this. Always have been. Always will be. And these chains are not just external, they are internal. That's personal work, but it's also collective work, which you are doing. And I'm honored and grateful to be a part of this process. Whether we're in a city or a town or a classroom or in the kitchen, at home or in a protest or a hike, or sitting in the forest in contemplation of the wonder of the world itself, these kinds of activities are very important in nourishing our capacity to heal. The experience of beloved community is at the foundation of our healing and transformation. By staying in touch with beloved community as an experience of being together in peace and joy, in creativity, in anguish, in tears, all held by love. This is the practice of transforming within so we can transform without. Ending quote for you from James Baldwin. We've got to be clear-headed about human beings as possible because we are still each other's only hope.
As we close, I invite you to take the next step in this journey of bearing witness and healing. Join Zen Peacemakers in April 2025 for our Bearing Witness to Racism retreat in Alabama, an opportunity to engage deeply with the history of racial injustice and the ongoing work of reconciliation and transformation. Together, we can walk the path toward collective healing. Thank you for joining us today on the Peacemakers Podcast. If you found this episode meaningful, we invite you to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts and Substack so you never miss an opportunity to engage with voices of wisdom and transformation. May we walk this path of awakening together.